Hello, and welcome to Toby's Sideshow of Scale Styrene. It's a bit of a tongue twister tonight. Today we're going to be looking at my Polish Paratrooper diorama. And this is going to be the quick 360 tour showing the Paratrooper and his Triumph 3HW motorcycle with all of its little edits that I did. And obviously quite a few edits on the Paratrooper, considering he started off as a German soldier. And so let's look at the motorcycle first. This is the box it came in some 20 odd years ago, probably closer to 30 odd years ago. And there's the basic information about the model. And there's what I paid for it, $5. I got it at a model swap meet, and it was missing the decals, so I got it for a dirt cheap price simply because no decals. That was fine by me. First we'll be looking at the bicycle like I mentioned, and here it is, your nice little Triumph motorcycle. And if you notice, the front fender is missing. And that's because I put it on there 3 times and it fell off 3 times, and after the 3rd time it fell off, I said, screw it. You're battle damaged now, and it went right into the garbage. And I really don't care, because actually I kind of like it better without that front fender. It kind of gives it a nice rakish look. I know the rider on the bike would really like a front fender because he's probably getting covered with mud and dirt and everything else from the road. The motor was painted chrome silver, and then it was obviously toned down a lot with a lot of washes and dry brushing of red browns and stuff. Not so much to make it look rusty, but just to make it look like it had been used and stuff. And if you notice, the cylinders here are nice and bright silver and then black on the inside, and you see all sorts of like oil stains and all sorts of other things on the basic 1-cylinder motor. I'm really happy with the way the motor turned out. Here we have the back tire that has a fender, and if you notice, the messenger bag is missing and something else is in its spot instead. And then the muffler is kind of all nice and dirtied up and got some exhaust stains on it and such. And here's a view of the gas can from above, and you can kind of still see that seam down the middle. I made it a long time ago. And you can also see some battle damage on the seat here. There's supposed to be a plate underneath that I've got to replace again, and then it's kind of like a metal plate for like the seat that's covered in leather, and then I had some horsehair and stuff sticking out, so it looked like a nice little hole there. The overall color of it was an olive green, and then obviously some washes and dry brushing with various weathering colors like tans and browns and blacks and such. Bunch of gear on the back. Most of the gear is all made with like gauze and then rolled up tissue soaked in white glue, as in tissue paper soaked in white glue. And you see there Piat that's laying across the back. That's Projectile Infantry Anti-Tank, which was the British version of a bazooka. I had to scratch build that, and I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm thinking about rebuilding it again because I've looked at it a couple times and realized that I could make it a little more detailed. Here's one of the messenger bags that come with the kit. It actually came with 2, one for each side. I gave it that nice mustardy color that you see in with a lot of the British canvas and stuff. And then the straps were a little bit of a darker color. And really happy with the way it came out too. And this is the British parachute helmet that comes with it. It's kind of hard to see because of the green gauze that's covering it, and then the burlap pieces that are used for camouflage, kind of making it look like a ghillie suit, which was a common thing with British Paras and stuff, with the netting and then the burlap straps and stuff. And you can barely see the white in here. That's the Polish eagle underneath all of the camouflage. This gas can actually came with the Zundap motorcycle. I'll have to do a video of it sometime in the near future. I decided to replace one of the messenger bags with the fuel can, you know, that they just kind of absconded, which meant that I needed to make new straps out of styrene, and then the little O-ring here for the straps to strap into. And then it's basically your filled gray, and then, you know, some heavy weathering and such. And now we'll move on to the Paratrooper. He's going to take a little more time than the motorcycle because I had to do a whole lot more with the Para than I did the motorcycle. I mean, removing a fender is an easy thing, but what I had to remove from him and add to him is kind of major because he began life as this fellow, the Panzer Grenadier Großdeutschland. I actually built the figure, had the figure for a while. He was looking pretty good, and then he started looking pretty bad as time went by, and he started looking really dingy. So I said, I'm going to turn you into something else, and I just decided I'm going to make you into a British Para. And so the first thing I had to do was change my mind because he was a British Para, and then he became a Polish Paratrooper. And the big difference between the British Paratrooper and a Polish Paratrooper is the color of the beret and the way they wear the beret. The British Paras have a red beret, and it's kind of pulled over to the side of one ear, whereas the Polish Paras, they put their Polish eagles smack dab in the middle, right between the eyes, and then they pull a steel gray beret straight back over the back. So it's worn differently, and it looks different. Almost doesn't even look like a beret. It looks like a hat without a visor. But that's the way the Poles wore it, and that's the way they still wear it today. Big thing I had to do was change the leggings, or change the boots on the Panzer Grenadier. He was wearing jack boots, which meant I had to extend his pants down using putty, mostly squadron green putty, and then I had to make some leggings to go over the top of the ammunition boots. Those are the shoes that the British wear. They're actually called ammunition boots. The leggings are made out of styrene, stripped styrene like evergreen plastic, that's then covered with tissue paper and also giving a coat of squadron green putty over that. And then the straps were made also out of styrene plastic, and then the buckles are made out of stretched sprue. You see the boots have had the sides put in place, and then laces had to be made too. The laces are also made out of stretched sprue. A lot of tongue twisters tonight. The Sten gun actually came with the bike, so that wasn't a real problem. And the only thing I really had to do is make a sling for it, and that is out of evergreen strip styrene, and then the buckles were made out of sprue. The barrel was drilled out, and then it was just slipped into the hand. Now this whole sleeve had to be changed though, because if you notice, it's got a new cuff, and if you also notice, it kind of cuts in a little bit. So from about here down, major changes were made using green putty, and then cutting it in here, and then putting the evergreen plastic new cuff on there. And the hand was also repositioned slightly. A hole was drilled into it, and a balsa wood pole is starting somewhere around here on the hand and going up into here, up to the elbow, to nicely anchor it into the arm. The other hand, this actually was a holdover from when I was making the Panzer Grenadier. I actually had him wounded, and that's how I knew what I could do with the other hand. I ended up cutting this off right here. You can actually see the seam, and then all of this down here is made out of thin evergreen plastic that's covered with tissue and glue, and then also a little bit of green putty and such. The hole was cut into there and then shredded with an X-Acto knife for the damage there. And if you notice, there is the inside shirt also over under the smock. And then the arm here is actually carved out of balsa wood and jammed all the way up into here. It was covered in green putty, painted, and then the bandage was wrapped around there, which is obviously just tissue soaked in white glue. And then the blood stains are everything from black to brown to red. And the idea here is that the injury continues to open up, so there's dried blood and fresh blood, and that's because the guy still has to drive his motorcycle. So that's why the hand is the way it is, and the way the wound is the way it is. I'm really happy with the wound. That's why, it's probably one of my proud moments of modeling, making this wounded arm. And if you notice down here, that is the large cargo pocket you find on all the British pants or trousers. And that's basically several pieces of white tissue and green putty to make it. The pack on his back is carved out of balsa wood, and then there's all sorts of tissue paper and everything else. The tissue paper and green putty is used on almost everything that's made out of balsa wood to give it more of a texture for the material, the heavy canvas. You also see the poncho underneath the flap of the backpack, and also a coffee cup hanging there on the back. Up around the neck, to get that figure, there's major changes that needed to be done with the collar and everything, so had to make a new one out of strip styrene and everything. And then I gave him that typical netting type scarf that the British Paras wear, which is used by just about everyone. And you also see the straps for the backpack. Canteen, also balsa wood and all the other stuff that I needed to do with it. And then you see this, the throat of it is blue, which is the way the British canteens are, and then you got the cork stopper. And on the side here you have a knuckle duster knife. Most people associate that with World War II, but it was also, most people associate it with World War I, but it was also used extensively in World War II. In fact, the BC-41 was a knife that came out at the beginning of World War II and was made for commandos and paratroopers, and it saw service throughout the war. So not everyone carried the Sykes-Fairbairn, or Fairbairn-Sykes, whatever it is, the commando knife. You got the ammunition pouches up front and the belt. The hook here is made out of bent wire. Again, balsa wood that's just been carved and covered in green putty. And then the buckles, again, made out of sprue and stuff. This camouflage pattern you see on the smock, that is based off of the British parachute smock that I had at one time. So, and I basically sat there and copied it, stroke by stroke. So if it's wrong, then my British parachute smock was also wrong. This seam here is where the flap ends up getting buttoned in over the back side. Okay, that brings us to the base, which is basically a picture frame that's been covered with various types of groundwork. Up front you'll see a nice little rock, and then the grass is basically hemp rope that's been stuck into the groundwork, which was a mess of all sorts of things. I'm not exactly sure what all the groundwork was, but there's obviously a lot of rock and some little stuff from Lifelike and with the grasses and stuff like that underneath the hemp rope. And then the dirt trail here is actually sand out of Lake Michigan that was filtered down to get the right size pebbles and everything that I wanted. Everything was kind of glued down with white glue and also given several coats of hairspray back in the time, because hairspray works really good for holding down the pebbles and everything. And so that was pretty much the whole kit. Thanks a lot for visiting, and really happy you did. As always, comments are always welcome, and insults are cheerfully ignored. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe and tell your friends. Again, thank you, and have a great day.